In this lesson video, we will continue our discussion on cell references. Now, we are going to take a look at the types of cell references in terms of their relativity, which in this case, we can divide the cell references into three types: relative, absolute, and mixed. We will cover the relative and the absolute types in this lesson, and then the mixed type later in the next lesson. To start, you can download the file that I have provided for this lesson. Before we get into more depth, you need to keep in mind that the relativity side of the cell reference will only matter when you duplicate the formula that uses the cell reference, by either using the copy-paste method or by using the autofill method. If you only create a formula for a single cell, then none of this will have any impact. Basically, if you create a cell reference like we did in a previous lesson, you are actually creating a relative type of cell reference. To convert it into an absolute type reference, you must add a dollar symbol in front of the column code or the row code. For more details, let's take a look at the following examples. In the Excel file I provided, you can see three worksheets. Make sure you are now at the first worksheet, which is called relative. In this worksheet, there is a table that contains data on student grades. There are scores for the first exam and scores for the second exam. If in column D, we want to get the sum result of column B and column C values, we need to select cell D3, then type in the equal symbol. For typing in the B3 cell code, you can just click on the cell, then type the plus symbol, then use the mouse again to click on cell C3, then press enter, and we have the result 165. Up to this point, I'm pretty sure you have understood the technique. Now in this cell, we cannot see the formula. What we see here is only the number 165, which is the result or the output of the formula. Yes, we can click on the cell to see the formula above, but there is another way. And this technique is very useful if you want to see multiple formulas in multiple cells at once. For this, you need to open the formula menu and click on the Show Formulas button. As you can see, Excel temporarily widens the columns, and the formula that we created now visible directly on the cell. If we click the Show Formulas button again, the display will return to normal. So this button is basically a toggle button. You can turn it on or off as needed. Because this button is very important, especially when you are working with a lot of formulas in Excel. I recommend you to memorize the shortcut, which is Ctrl-tilde. If you don't know where this tilde key is, it is located in the upper left area of the keyboard, just below the escape key. For now, make sure the Show Formula mode is active. Then take a look at cell D3. In cell D3, we use two cell addresses that use the number 3. In this condition, Excel will assume there is a relative relationship between these three numbers and the position of cell D3. Remember, cell reference relativity will only matter when we duplicate the formula. So, if you drag the autofill square downward like this, notice in cell D4, the row numbers have changed from 3 to 4 automatically. Likewise, when they appear on cell D5, these numbers are now 5, and so on. If you press Ctrl-tilde again, we can check and prove that the results in column D are all correct. Next, let's discuss the next type, which is the absolute cell reference. Please open the next worksheet called Absolute. Just as before, what we need to do in this worksheet is to calculate the total scores of the students. What is different now is that each value is given a different weight. The project score is 60% of the final score, and the exam score is 40% of the final score. To solve this, first, we can click on cell D3, then type the equal symbol, open parentheses, then click on cell B3, then the asterisk symbol, then click on cell G2, which contains the percentage value of 60%. And the closing parenthesis. Then, for the exam scores, press the plus sign, open parenthesis, and click on cell C3, then the asterisk symbol, Then click on cell G3 to get the 40% value, closing parentheses, and then enter. Now we have 80 as the final score. For the first cell, the output is correct. However, if we duplicate the formula using autofill, we get strange results. Why is this happening? If we press Ctrl tilde again and look closely at this cell D4, we can see that D4 is correct because it refers to this cell which is parallel to it. If you look at this G3 cell, before we continue, notice how Excel helps us to quickly detect cell references by providing these different colors. This G3 code is colored with red, the same color that is on the G3 cell. Obviously, for this case, we don't want to reference cell G3. We want to keep the cell reference to cell G2 where the 60% value exists. Likewise, for the exam scores, this C4 is correct. But this one is multiplied by cell G4, which is an empty cell. Excel will use zero value when you refer to a blank cell. And as we go down the rows, we can see these cell references also go down and pointing to empty cells. Essentially, all of these cells have the wrong formulas. So let's delete everything except the original formula at the top cell. Now, we need to tell Excel that these values of G2 and G3 should not be changed when the formula is duplicated to the other cells. This is what absolute cell reference really means. For this, we can add a dollar symbol just before the letter G and before the number 2. With this dollar symbol, now the reference code G2 becomes absolute. Next, we also need to do the same with the cell address G3. There is actually a faster way to change the cell reference type to the absolute type, and that is by pressing the F4 key on the keyboard. First, you need to click so that the text cursor is located in the address code of cell G3. Then press F4. As we can see, Excel adds these dollar symbols without us having to type them manually one by one. When you are done, just press Enter. And now, if we click drag the autofill square downward, we can see in the results, the cell references to G2 and also to G3 do not change when the formula is duplicated. If you press Ctrl tilde again, we can see the results in the numbers are what we expected.